One of the most frequently asked questions that we get from clients is, how long is the project going to take? How long is it going to take to design and build the extension or the house that I'd like to do? My name is Neil Scroxton. I'm the Managing Director of Scroxton & Partners. We're planners, architects and construction managers. If you've seen some of our other videos, welcome back. If you haven't yet subscribed, please feel free to do so and click the little bell next to it so that you get reminded when more content comes out. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Hopefully you'll find this and other videos helpful. So how long is your project going to take? I'm sorry to tell you that's a little bit of a how long's a piece of string question, because it does depend on lots of different factors. There are certain things within the project time frame that are knowns, like planning permission, for example. There's a fixed time frame that has to work to, but there are other things that come into play that are to do with the relationship between your designer and yourselves and how builders work. So you can essentially split a project up into 6 key phases. Now that doesn't quite tie in with the way that the RIBA talk about a project, where they talk about 8 stages, 0 through to 7. But what I'll do is I'll relate the 6 key phases to the 8 stages of the RIBA as we go along. So first off, there's the initial design. RIBA stages 0 through to 2. That's basically getting ideas down on paper, testing them, making sure it works, and it shouldn't be rushed because it's going to be the building blocks for the rest of your project. The next key stage, if you require it, is planning permission, which is essentially RIBA stage 3. That's when you're going to take that initial design work and you're going to send it to the local authority to check whether or not the project that you want to build can be built. Now the thing to remember about planning permission is that it's not a given. There are things that you can do to try and make sure that you're likely to get planning permission, but it is subjective. It does come down to the person that's dealing with the case on the day. So you may need to go back in for planning permission again. And certainly if you're looking at a contentious project, you should expect to go back into planning at least once more, which will require some more design work in between before that second application is made. Once planning has been granted, or if you've got a project that doesn't require planning, the next stage is the detailed design. So this is the beginning of RIBA stage 4. And what the detailed design does is that starts to put in a lot more information. It takes the simplistic design work that you've done leading up to planning permission and builds out the specification. It starts to tell the building control officer and the contractor how you're going to build your home. So as part of the detailed design, the next key phase is building regs approval, which is where you take the detailed drawings and specification that's been produced and you ask a building control officer to have a look at it and make sure that it meets current standards. On from building regs approval, we then go to tender. So now we've got a set of drawings that we know are correct and that we're going to build with. We take that information and we give it to a builder, and they can start to look at pricing and come back with an offer essentially to build that extension or home for you. And so those 3 phases, detailed design, building regs approval and tender, all form part of what is known as RIBA stage 4. And then the next key phase is construction, or RIBA stage 5 and 6. This is exactly what it says on the tin. This is the time when you've got your builder on site and stuff is happening. You know, that design that you spent all that time getting approved and working through is now going to site and it's going to grow out of the ground. Now there is one more RIBA stage, the 8th stage, which is confusingly called stage 7. That is really for projects where you require testing afterwards. Once the project is complete and you need the team to come back and prove certain technologies, that's when stage 7 is involved. So we don't really talk about it in most residential projects, hence I say that there's 6 key phases. Obviously, the answer to how long is my project going to take does depend massively on how big and how complex your project is. But even the smallest project, you should be expecting to spend at least 8 weeks in the initial design phase, and then you're going to have at least 8 weeks at planning, assuming that it gets passed first time, you don't have to go back in again. Then from a technical design point of view, your design is probably going to take another 4 weeks or so, and then up to 4 weeks to get that passed. Tender, your builder will take at least 4 weeks to come back to you, probably 8 weeks. So you're looking at in the region of 32 weeks before you've even got to a point of digging a hole in the ground. There are things that can be done to speed that up. You can overlap certain stages and phases within a project, but you need to understand that when you do that, you're taking on risk, and unless there's a good reason to take on risk, it's probably not worth rushing the process. And then from a construction point of view, even those little projects can take a good 3 months for the builder to be completely finished and off-site. If you look at the same process and you talk about building a one-off house, you should expect to be spending at least 4 months in that early design phase, if not more. Again, you want to get it right, you don't want to rush it. Planning permission, all being well, you're going to get it through in one hit in that 8-week period, but let's assume that because it's a house, it's going to be a little bit more controversial. So again, that's probably a 4-month period. Detailed design, this is where, particularly on a bigger project, a lot of other consultants come in and start to add more information. So your designers are going to require, again, sort of 2-3 months to get the information to a point where it's at a, you're going to get a good response back from a contractor. Tenders are going to take 4-6 weeks to really get into getting that pricing right, and then you're going to be able to start on site. So if you've totted that up correctly as I've gone along, you're looking at a design process that's over a year long. And most people don't expect the answer to be that. You can, as I say before, you can always speed things up, but you need to understand that when you speed things up, you do restrict your design team and you do take risk on yourself. For example, you could put your planning permission in and then you could start working on your detailed design while you're waiting for planning permission to come back. But if that planning permission fails and you have to make some major changes to the design, you're going to have wasted a load of money and fees on technical design. So again, it's just having an understanding for what it means to speed up a project and why you would speed up a project. Generally, it's going to take a lot longer than you thought it was going to, but talk to your designer, talk to your architect. Make sure you understand the time that it's going to take to design and get your project through the system, and manage your own expectations on this. Don't try and push the envelope too hard when it comes to time management, because you are just going to end up disappointed in the process and in the results that you get. So thank you again for joining me. As always, if there's any comments, please pop them in the bar below. If there's anything you'd like us to do differently, or if there's anything you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. Please subscribe, click the little bell so that you're reminded when we're adding new content. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. And I'm Neil Scroxton. This has been How Long Does It Take to Build? And I hope you found it helpful.